Welcome to your Thrive Era podcast, a show for high achieving women who are done with burnout and ready to reclaim their time, energy, and joy. I'm Shannon Logan, mom, wife, coach, and entrepreneur for over a decade. I know what it's like to juggle it all and still feel like it's never enough. But everything changed once I developed my set protocol. The simple yet sustainable way to take back myself, my energy, and my time. If you're ready to break free from burnout and finally thrive, you're in the right place. Let's dive in. Welcome, everyone. Welcome back to your Thrive Era podcast. I am Shannon Logan, owner, founder, coach, entrepreneur for over a decade, and most importantly, mom and wife. And I am joined today by my incredible guest, Emmy Smaz. Hope I said that right. I probably just butchered it again. And I'm so excited to have you on today, Emmy, because we kind of found each other through Instagram and you started to follow me and I looked at your page and I was like, wow, this person is full of life and I have to learn more about her. And so as we started chatting back and forth, I found that, man, I would love to have her come on the show because I think she could really help my audience and we could learn a lot because I know I could. So with all of that, I'll open the floor to you. So just give us a little bit about your background, who you are, where you're coming from, a little bit your story and all of that, and we'll get into it.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you so much. That's very kind of you to say. And you did pronounce it right. And so, yeah, I'm super excited to be here today. Just a little bit of my background that I'll kind of stick to the bullet points because that's where a lot of my experience and my growth on, social media has come from. I had a very normal upbringing, a very normal childhood, nothing crazy going on in my life for most of my life. And then got married. And after my husband and I got married, really wanted to have kids about 3 years in. And so we started trying to get pregnant and had a big community of people around us, lots of siblings, lots of friends, and they were all getting married and starting their journey of having kids too. And so we struggled to get pregnant while everybody else around us was having babies and whatnot. In the meantime, we also always wanted to bring in children or offer children who didn't have a place to call home, offer them a home. Because growing up, my parents brought in a few kids that were really close. They were close friends to the family, but didn't have a loving home. So my parents brought them in and they're now literally my siblings. And so my husband and I kind of adopted that dream. And so in the process of trying to get pregnant, kind of came across the situation of three children who needed a place to call home, complete strangers to us, like at the time.
Wow.
And but they were, there was it's my, sister-in-law's friend. There was a chain down the line. It's not like we like found them on the road. So we knew of them. But anyways, long story short, they moved in, became a part of our family. We've been caring for them ever since. It's been over 4 years now, kind of just took them under our wing and have been loving them like our own ever since. And then about a year or so after they moved in, my husband and I ended up getting pregnant and had like a perfect pregnancy. I was super healthy. The baby was super healthy. And then at 39 and a half weeks, she ended up, I went in for a checkup one day because I kind of noticed that like her movement had slowed down. And so I went to get checked up on and the doctors couldn't find a heartbeat. And so she ended up being stillborn. And of course it was so traumatic and so sudden. And because it had taken us so long to get pregnant, it was like extra devastating. Any baby loss is devastating, but because it took us so long and because it was such a big dream of ours, it was just, I not to compare losses, but in the moment, it just felt extra devastating when there were so many people who were praying for us and rallying behind us. And it was earth shattering. And so our lives just completely got flipped upside down. And after that, the mental and emotional load quickly started to turn physical on myself, but mostly my husband, who had previously been diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And then so slowly after our daughter's death, he developed colitis. And so that autoimmune disease already had a place in his body. And with the trauma and the turmoil and all of the just unresolved feelings of everything, it literally just spiraled out of control until we were in and out of the hospital literally several times in 2023 and then all year in 2024, just in and out of the hospital. Ended up having we had a 50 day stay at
Yeah.
one point with major surgery and just it was crazy times. And so all of this, kind of led to me going, you know what? I have, I feel like I have so much purpose and such a big story to share. And these are kinds of the things that I went through are kinds of things that will just take people down and get people stuck and their
Mm-hmm.
pain and their loss of purpose and all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
And just to sum up where I'm at now, I just decided that I wasn't going to let it be the end of me. And in honor of her, my daughter that died, because she was so important to me, and I felt like I owed it to her to leave her some amazing legacy. My husband and I decided we're never doing that again as far as his health is concerned. We're never letting our health get that bad. We're not putting off our dreams anymore. The things that people say all the time, and I'm sure people who are listening know exactly what I'm talking about. Like, I would love to do that one day. And yes, we're going to do that one day and add it to the list. And it's like, what are we waiting for?
Mm-hmm.
Everything on our list, everything that we want to pursue, what are we waiting for? Because if life is so fragile, we now know that it is. What are we waiting for?
Yeah.
And so, all of this said, my husband and I just decided like we're going to just do everything with heart and guts, and we're going to push through this pain, and we're going to educate ourselves, and we're going to learn how to get healthy and learn how to take care of our mental and emotional state and just be the ultimate best versions of ourselves that we can possibly be, because we don't know what tomorrow brings. We don't know if there will to be a tomorrow for us or the people that we love. And so, today's the day to start living and start pursuing their dreams. But on the flip side of that, it also forced me to slow down a little bit and really appreciate
Mm.
what is right in front of me. And I think
Yeah.
there are definitely seasons of life where kind of you're hustling and you're full of grit and all these things, but I think there's also something really beautiful about learning how to slow down. And my daughter's death did did both of those things for me. It taught me how to do both of those things. And so sometimes I'm doing them simultaneously, and sometimes I'm doing them one season at a time. But the reason I grew on social media, Instagram specifically, was because I started showing people. I literally just started documenting my journey and how I was learning these things and watching these things unfold in front of me, and educating myself and taking control of our health and all of these things. So, and that's where I'm at today. So,
Girl, man, that it gives me goosebumps literally. I have goosebumps from that story, mainly how you and your husband chose to respond. Like
yeah,
conscious choice, and it sounds to me like it's a continual day in and day out conscious choice.
for sure.
Because that pain that you're both walking through, like I can only think about you being a mother, giving birth to your daughter who has already passed. You have three foster kids at home. You have all this emotional grief. You have this body that has been pregnant for 40 weeks. It's not 9 months, by the way, it's 40 weeks. um, and trying to just sort through that, just exist. And then your poor husband ends up severely ill as well. So I have to ask, like, how did you keep your own self afloat through that? Because just one of those events can often bring, and understandably so, but people down where they just crumble and they don't know how to get back up. And meanwhile, you had three or four massive events happening simultaneously, and here you are 3 years later, 2 years later, and you've turned it into a positive way to live your life and help other people. So what did you have to do in that first month, 3 months, 6 months to keep your own self afloat?
So, like you mentioned, I still gave full blown birth. She was full term. So it's not,
Yeah.
and I'm not making light of earlier losses. It's just, it was a birth. And so, the postpartum and all of that, I had to deal with all of that. And so I was literally physically healing from giving birth for a few months there. And thank God I do have an amazing support system. I have an amazing mother who literally did not leave my side for, I think, 3 months. She basically moved into my house. Um, a sister that was just there all the time for me. So I do have an incredible support system who literally was just kind of holding me up and helping me physically heal during those first couple months. I didn't do, to be honest, the answer to that question is I didn't do a lot at all, partially because I was healing.
Yeah.
But then on top of that, and I was doing things that most women who are giving birth don't have to do. I had to stop my milk from coming in. So
Yep.
every day I had to do, things to stop my milk. And, I cried a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like I sat around and I literally cried a lot and I did not do anything. I didn't go anywhere. And that was just kind of literally catching my breath. And that
Mm,
is important. That is something important to get across, that when you are grieving, and I'm not just talking about a person, or although it could be a person, when you're grieving a loss, or you just went through a divorce, or you just had this horrible traumatic situation, whatever it is, like it is so important to slow the heck down and to learn that your body, that grief in general, and that when pain hits, it has such a physical reaction. Grief is not just mental and emotional, it is physical. And if you
yeah.
don't take care of yourself physically, it will come out somehow. That is what happened to my husband. He did not
Hmm.
address anything. He didn't address his mind, his heart, his feelings, the physical aspect. He didn't address any of it. And that is what caused him to spiral. I truly believe in my heart. And so, besides the support system and just slowing down and doing nothing, I started kind of just finding things to cope with and just keep myself kind of busy. After like 3 months or so of doing like literally nothing, I started doing like house projects. I started decluttering. I was like, get everything out of my house. I don't want to see it anymore. I started, and that's actually how my social media started to grow, is because I was doing like cleaning videos, because I actually come from the um, professional cleaning world.
Okay.
So I have a lot of, home knowledge when it comes to cleaning and decluttering and organizing and all those things. So that's actually how I started to grow, was I started just doing cleaning videos and DIY projects and decluttering and all these things. And that's kind of how I poured myself into it. And that's because I was very naive to the fact that I had some skills to learn and some deep rooted issues that I had to work out inside of me. And instead of facing them, I kind of just coped through them. And then once all that adrenaline finally wore off, of, you know, giving birth, but having a stillbirth, the flowers stopped, the gift cards stopped, the meals stopped. Once all of that stopped and the adrenaline kind of worn off and like my reality like set in, that's when my physical body was like started freaking out, red flags all
Yep.
over the place. And it was at that point that someone actually, a really good friend of mine who I grew up with, offered to pay for some grief coaching
Mm.
services for me. And I think at the time, if things continue to get bad, I would have definitely invested in that in myself. But I was beyond blessed to have somebody who wanted to do that for me. And so that was life changing, because I learned so much. I learned that so much of pain and grief and loss and all these things they're skills. You have to learn how to
Yeah.
do these things. No
Yep.
one's standing around going, let me show you exactly how to do this. And there is no one way. But there are definitely skills to be learned. And so for me, I was blessed to have somebody offer me those services. If you can't do those services, you got to find resources. You have to find resources to help you, because you are not made to just figure this out on your own.
Agreed.
There's skills that need to be learned. And so I guess my piece of advice through those early days is to, like, other than slowing down and taking a step back, is like, get help. Like, you need to be shown how to do this. People don't get to where I am today just by chance. I have worked my butt off. I went slow and I took time to grieve slowly. But once that time period was over for myself, I got up and I had to make some really, really hard choices. And it is a choice. Like you said, I have to make this choice on a daily basis. But that's why I have found reasons to smile again and find joy again and purpose and happiness and all of these things. So,
Man, again, just super powerful. Like one of the things I loved your point about slowing down.
mm-hmm,
I would imagine almost that you didn't have a choice. I think back to how things were when I gave birth,
mm-hmm,
and I was forced to slow down as well, but I wasn't craving a loss at that point either. And
sure.
so the whole healing process itself is is takes time. And I think in our society, so much pressure is put on the pace of it. Go, 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 fast,
Hmm.
fast, fast, get knocked down, get back up. You should be able to handle it. Why does it affect you like that? X, Y, and Z. Um, and as a result, people are uncomfortable slowing down.
Yeah.
People are uncomfortable sitting still. You ask someone to sit still in silence for 5 minutes, and most people can't make it because it's just like I'm uncomfortable in my own space.
Right.
And it is becoming it's a skill, like you said, because it's not what we're accustomed to. But there's
Hmm.
so much healing, there's so much self-awareness that comes through that. And also the point about asking for help. Again, with so many of my clients that I work with one on one, we do life coaching with them, and they're successful and they have a full-time job and they've got kids, and on paper they look amazing, and they think they should have it all figured out because somehow I don't know, they've been where they are before. Like, we haven't ever been in the day that we're in right now.
Hmm.
And asking for help can feel like a failure, where in my mind I see it as like the first step in a huge success of courage and bravery and all of those things, because like you said, you had to learn how to grieve properly. And one of the things I teach my clients on a much smaller scale is letting feelings come up so that you can let them go.
Mm.
Because when they're uncomfortable, our first instinct, often what we want to do is push them down and divert attention. Pick up our phones, check Instagram, hop on
Right.
email, avoid, 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 avoid. And as you mentioned with your husband, they just end up building. And so I have a simple practice and I teach my clients of like, just set a clock for 1 minute and just let yourself feel everything that's there. Because
Mm.
sometimes people think, hey, if I feel that stuff, I won't be able to get back up. It'll kind of knock me down and I won't exist well, or I won't respond well, or I won't be on the to-do list to get through with the day, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you
Yeah.
can
Well,
set a clock for like 1 minute and just let those come up, you tend to be able to let them pass.
for sure. And what you're describing, there's this word that I just love, and I talk about it all the time on social media, and it kind of bridges the gap between, oh, slow living, and some people might look at that and go, what, you never get anything done? And no, it's not about not getting anything done, but there's this bridge that or there's this word that bridges the gap between slow living and fast paced, go, 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 kind of just constantly on the go. And the word is intentionality. And you can
Yes.
have both of these things as long as you're doing both of them with intention and intentionality. And so, like you said, you can set a 1 minute timer for yourself, or you can create a schedule of what your day is going to look like. Like, the most important thing to remember is whatever you're doing, like, do it with intentionality. When I'm slowing down, like in the morning, like when I'm working out and I'm only working out. I'm not checking my phone. I'm not worrying about whatever, like I'm working out and I'm putting my all into that workout. And I normally feel so much better when I do that than when I'm like also reading emails and also, oh, I got to text this person back and whatever. And that can go with anything in life. And you're a mom. I have kids in the house, so I'm assuming most people listening to this are people who are busy and have all the reasons in the world to find excuses to not have time for this thing and that thing and whatever. But it's all about, my two favorite words are intentionality and prioritizing,
Mm,
because we all have the same amount of time in the day. It's just about how we prioritize it. I never use the phrase I don't have time for that, because it's like, yeah, yes, I do. I just am choosing not to prioritize that. So, if somebody asks me like, oh, are you going to this thing? Like, or are you going to do this thing? I'll never say like, oh, I don't have time for that. But what I will say is I'm not prioritizing that right now,
hmm.
because I do have time for it if I want to make time for it. Craig Ballantyne says that all the time. You're not supposed to be finding the time, you're supposed to be making the time. And I just love that, because it's so true. We all have the same amount of time, and we just have to decide to be intentional with the time that we have been given and with what task we're doing within that time. And that's why, like, kind of just to touch on the early days of my grief, or even, it doesn't even have to be early days. I will literally text my husband if I'm having And this kind of ties together that 1 minute of like feeling everything. If I'm having like a really emotional day or just an off day, or I need some space, whatever, I will literally text my husband and say, I'm having a rough day, or I'm having a super griefy day, as we call it. I need some time to myself tonight. And so he will make a point to allow me to go upstairs, take some time to myself, and that's when
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to let it all out. I
Mm-hmm.
tell whatever I'm doing at the time. If I do have time during the day, I will take that time and I will do it. But if it happens to be a busier day or a fuller day, I will intentionally schedule out an hour to cry, to read, to sit in the nursery that's still a nursery, like whatever it is. But I'm super intentional about it.
Yeah.
And I think
Yeah.
that's, people think they either need to be like dilly dallying around all the time, or they need to like hustle. And it's like, no, you can have both of these things. You can live a slow, intentional life, but still be moving and shaking and working on things. It's just
Mm-hmm.
about being intentional about which one you're doing when.
You and me are two peas in a pod because everything you just said is like, yes, you preach into the choir. Like my two favorite words are authenticity and
Mm,
intention. Because also with authenticity, you still have to be intentional about what you do. And
mm,
I spend when I work with my clients, one of the first thing we do is build out values. Because
mm.
how are you going to live with intention if you're not clear about what that values you have, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And our society, we are reacting constantly thanks to this little rectangular box that we carry everywhere with us.
Right.
We wake up and we're constantly reacting. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like, no, yes, it takes effort. Yes, it takes boundaries and systems and things like that to break yourself of that. But intention, when you live with intention, like you said, you can do both.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coaching for Craig. I run my own business. I have a small daughter, and my workday ends at 2:30 every single day, and yet I can still juggle all these things, make six figures plus because I'm making it with intention behind everything I do. What kind of
Yeah.
workouts I do on what days, based off what we need at home. We have a young dog, so he needs to be run and worn out, and or else I can't work because he chews on everything. But when people start to see that they have more control than they think, they
Mm-hmm.
need to take that power back and say, "Yeah, you're right. I'm better than this. Let's have some intention behind what I do." And they start responding instead of reacting. That's
Yeah.
when that growth happens. And they find out that it's not that complicated. To have a lifestyle that lets you slow down, but
Mm-hmm.
also succeed. Like, but both can coexist if you have the internal work that needs to be done there really well. So I love it,
Exactly.
girl. I love it.
Well, and I love that what you just said, because you said they have more control than you think. And I think that's one of the biggest lessons I learned is the things that I thought were just givens in life were the things that were actually completely out of my control. But the things that I found that were completely in my control were the things that I wasn't being intentional about and I wasn't prioritizing. And so I was like, well, what the heck? Why do I not have so many things that I want? Because those are the things that are completely in my control. And that was another lesson that was kind of like a catalyst for me to start doing things with my life that I really wanted. Like, wait,
Hmm.
I have control over the way my body looks and my health and, where I'm spending my time and how I'm making my money. I have full control over those things. And so that was a big lesson for me too. So I like that
Yeah,
you pointed that out.
that's awesome. So through this grief process and all the skills that you've had to learn along the way, which one would you say has been the most impactful for you that you want to make sure that other people know about?
Uh, the most impactful grief skill. I would say the most important one, maybe not the most important, but a big one is to know that it's funny. I was just talking to somebody. I just had somebody come onto my podcast and we were just talking about this for the first time. And I think the biggest thing is to understand that grief, there are so many misconceptions around
Mm,
grief. And that if you allow yourself to compare yourself or watch your grief timeline compared to what other people do with
mm,
their grief, or the 5 stages of grief, which in this episode we completely debunk the 5 stages of grief. And we also learn that grief is so not linear. It's actually more like a circle. And so I think the biggest skill that I could offer people that I learned is to not compare your grief to other people's grief, because there is no path. Whatever you Google about grief, there might be little flecks of things that you could pick out, or little nuggets of truth that you can go, oh, like I've experienced that. Like, but I truly believe that there are very, very few hard and fast rules
Mm,
or timelines or anything like that when it comes to grief. And it's good to relate to people. It's good to follow people who are also grieving or taking control of their life post grief or post loss, or however you want to say it. And it's good to find those people so that you can connect with them
mhm.
and build a community with them. But comparing where they are is a big no-no, because there is no timeline. And that might actually be a very cliche phrase, but it's really true. So if you hear somebody who has grieved or is grieving or have gone through devastation or any kind of profound loss, and if they say that to you, it's true. It's not just like a cliche thing to say. It is really, really true. And so when you start comparing yourself to others, you can start to feel like I'm stuck. I should be farther along. And you
Mm,
start to feel guilty and you start to create this shame over yourself. And that's going to completely keep you stuck where you are if all you're doing is comparing and shaming yourself for not being further along. And that's another beautiful thing about the analogy that this person and I were talking about is grief is a circle. You are going to come back. And when you come back to certain feelings or times, or you smell a certain smell, or you go to a
mm.
certain place, like I literally, after my daughter was born in that hospital, that's where my husband went back several times for his issues. So every time I
Mm.
walked through those doors, I had like a trauma response. And so there's
Yeah.
going to be times and things that come up in our life that remind us of those things. Or even if there's no reminder and you simply just have a bad day, that's not because you're stuck or you're behind or you're not where you should be. That's because we're just on this. It's kind of like a circle, or you can call it a roller coaster. As time goes on, time doesn't heal your wounds, but it can slow the roller coaster down, or it can give you less hills to ride. But a lot of it is most of it is the choices that you make. And that's, I guess, another big lesson and big skill that I learned is like all of this is a choice. Like I said before, you do not get to where I am today. And I'm at the top of the mountain, or I'm at the end of my journey. Grief is a lifelong journey. There's no end
Yeah.
to it. And but the one thing that I have learned is I've had to make a lot of hard choices to get to where I am today and to feel the joy again and to find reasons to smile. But it's a choice. So I would say stop comparing yourself to other people's journeys, and to remember that healing and grieving in general is a choice that you yourself and nobody else can make for you.
Stop comparing yourself to others. I
Yeah.
think that's a lesson that in kindergarten we need to be taught, and just every day repeatedly taught in general, because it
Yeah.
is one of the biggest ways to sabotage happiness and joy. You
Right.
know,
I'm sorry. I was just going to say, I actually was just talking about that on my Instagram this morning, because I was talking about how I've been like busting my butt at the gym, and I've been going like 4 days a week, and I've been, doing all the things, but I slowly started to like not see like any results. And I'm like, this should not be happening. Like, what's going on? And as I was reflecting yesterday, I realized it's because every time I step into those doors, I start comparing myself to everybody around me.
mm,
And I started to play this mental game with myself, and it no longer became about my physical fitness, and it was all about my mental comparison to everybody else around me
mm.
in a negative way. Because I do believe that comparison can be used in a positive way. When you start to compare yourself to people who are worse off or have less than you or whatever, comparison can be a bridge, not a bridge. Comparison can be a guide to gratitude when we use it correctly. When I look at people who have things worse off than I do, they've had, several losses, or their
Mm,
husband died in the hospital. Mine came out,
mhm.
healthy and whole, or their husband did. Like, when I can look at myself and compare myself to other people who have it worse off, that's where I can find gratitude and joy and all of these things. But when we use it as a mind game for why we're not good enough or we're not doing enough or whatever, it literally, I feel like completely, that's the reason why it was stunting my growth at the gym, It was stunting my results, like it was keeping me from telling myself I can do this, I can do better, I can do harder, not in a negative way, in a positive way, to build myself up, to motivate me to keep, pushing and telling myself like the hard work that I'm doing is worth it. So I told myself, or I told my husband, I was like, I'm going to take a couple of weeks off of going to the gym. I'm still going to work out, but I'm going to work out at home. And it's not a long-term plan. I just want to give it a little time because my mind
Mm,
needs a reset from this
mm-hmm.
comparison. I have to
Mm-hmm.
stop comparing myself because it's keeping me from my goals.
Yeah, again, super powerful. And one of the ways, because I struggle with it, I constantly think of where I should be.
Yep.
I should be here, I should be there, bit based off of what? And
Right.
one of the things that I have to be intentional about is looking back over my shoulder to see how far I've come.
Mm-hmm.
To look at, like, from your standpoint, from a fitness standpoint, a body
Mm-hmm.
standpoint, like, where were you 2 years ago? Where were you 6 months ago? I have to go back and again be intentional about comparing myself to myself so that I
Yeah.
can see the progress, so that I can see the growth. Because if I'm constantly chasing a carrot on a stick, I am eventually going to say screw it, and also just get burned out, which is what we talk about on this podcast all the time, and lose and miss out on the joy of all the steps that could help me get there too. If we're constantly looking ahead towards the end result, we're not present where our 2 feet are, and there's a lot of great stuff can happen. I love the note you made about how you're working out and staying off of your phone, right? Because it's so simple, but I mean, I'm right there with you, girl.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I own a business. I'm a coach for 2 of them. So like my phone, I have Slack, I have Gmail, I have WhatsApp. But my workout time is for me. And so when I choose to keep my phone upstairs, when I go downstairs, because I work out from home mainly, I'm a different person when I disconnect and pour into myself for that 45 minutes, and I'm
Yeah.
intentional about it. And so, like, looking at all of that and comparing, yes, you said it, it can be helpful, but it can also be destructive in terms of how and who and timelines and all of that. And there's never been another you before. So while Bob Smith down the street might have done something similar and had, an experience that you think you should stack up to, they are not the exact same as you. So cut yourself some slack, right? Cut yourself some grace with it.
For sure.
So as we start to wrap up, you're a
Mhm.
couple years down the road now. 24 was hellish still because there was a lot happening for your poor husband. And you guys made this choice to live out your life and your dreams and take action on them. I love all of that. Do you have a daily routine, daily practice that you really pour into for yourself to keep yourself recharged, centered, intentional about slowing down or enjoying time?
So obviously every day looks different, especially with the kids and their
Mm-hmm.
schedules and things like that. However, we do keep their schedules very minimal. We don't always do all of the everything. They're allowed to do one thing a year. And so aside from those kinds of things or what our nightly schedules look like, um, every morning I have to have some quiet time when I first wake up. So normally that's reading. I love reading, but it has to be a book that I'm super pumped about. So I have decided that I don't mind spending a little extra money on myself to get the book that I really want because I look forward to waking up at sometime between 5:30 and 5:45 every single day. My girls get up, they get up at 6 a.m. So I don't have much time before they're up and can you do this? Can I have this? Whatever. But they're pretty self-sufficient. So I love reading in the morning. My husband and I have a healthy breakfast every morning. I'm not saying I don't splurge a little bit here and there with my diet. I certainly do, but it's very important to me that we start with a healthy meal because it often can just set the tone for the rest of the day.
Mm-hmm.
So we eat a healthy meal. I am very slow in the morning, meaning I don't schedule to myself anything in the morning. I'm cooking myself and my husband breakfast. We take our supplements every morning. And then I prioritize working out. I prioritize movement first thing after the kids are off and my husband is working and all of those things. And there's definitely a difference in my day between the days that I do that little bit of routine and when I don't. And it sounds so simple, but it has this butterfly effect, for the rest of the
Mm-hmm.
day. One
Yep.
of my favorite best-selling authors, her name is Una Duncan. I actually just had her on my podcast. She wrote the book called Healthy AF, and it's all about creating healthy habits, but the principles can be applied to anything in life, any habit you're trying to create. And she calls it the keystone habit. And the keystone habit is that one thing that you do in the morning that causes you to do all of the other good habits. And that's another reason why I love working out in the morning, is because when I work out in the morning, it makes me want to eat healthier throughout the day, and it makes me want to keep moving. And so I just love that keystone habit. So whatever we do in the morning really does set the tone for our day. That's not just like a made up thing. That's like literally how our brains work. And a couple other things that I don't necessarily do in the morning, but that I try to incorporate every single day, is getting some sort of fresh air. Now, I'm in Buffalo, New York. So for half of the year, that is really hard because we have snow on the ground or it's raining a lot or whatever. I take full advantage of the summer days and the warmer days. And luckily, we do have beautiful falls. So it's really just the winter where it's really hard. But even if it is snowing, getting that sunshine, like, I am a different person. And I'm sure everybody who's listening, they are too. When you are having like a rough day, just get sun on your face and literally watch yourself perk
Mm-hmm.
up.
Mm-hmm.
Watch yourself and your mind and your emotional state perk up. Like, that's when I tell people, like, if you are having an off day, get outside, look up at the sun, and find something to be grateful for, because it can completely turn, your day around. And that's not just like, oh, because it feels good. That's literally how your brain works. Like, the sun is literally like, I don't even know the scientific word, so I'm not even going to pretend like I do, but whatever it does, it shoots off those happy hormones, whatever they are. And it literally,
Dopamine.
like,
You get a
dopamine. Yes, you
dopamine
get the
hit. Yep.
dopamine hit.
Yep.
Exactly. And so that is very, very important to me. So someone who, is grieving on a grief journey, like, that is important to me. That fresh air, getting my bare feet on the grass, grounding, all of those things. Those are the things that at the end of the day, no matter what else I'm filling my time with, if I did that, if I do those things, I typically feel my best. Um, I feel like I had a successful day, and I typically feel just all around like my best self, because I can fill my other time with anything else I want. But those are like my staples that kind of, you know, help me feel my best on a daily
Yeah.
basis.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's awesome. And it's so important to find those, because
Yeah.
each person has their own, like there are certain things that as humans we are wired, like you mentioned, sunshine, utterly important, especially if you can
Yeah.
get some in the morning, like your entire day will be changed.
Yep.
But like I have non-negotiables. I have three of them every day that if I do them, like you mentioned, my day is a success. I feel good. It helps everything else flow better. And the first one is I
Mm-hmm.
got to be up a minimum of 30 minutes before my daughter. Like I tend to
Yeah.
wake up at 4:45 each day because I'll work some, but I need quiet alone time first thing. I'm a better person. I'm a better
Yeah.
wife. I'm a better mom. I'm a better everything when I have a chance to wake up, to have an idea about my day, to pray, and just kind of, again, center myself with intention. So I'm responding and not reacting. Like that's a big thing.
Yes.
So
Exactly. Love
I
that.
love it. I love it, Emmy. So how can people find you if they just want to learn more about you, if they want to get advice because they're on their own grief journey, if they just want to spend some time with awesome E- Emmy Smaz?
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. I'm most active on Instagram, and my handle is Emmy Smaz, EMMYSMAZ. That's what everybody knows me as on there. And then the other thing is my podcast, which I'm super passionate about. That is called Beyond the Pain, Heart and Home Healing After Loss. If you search up Beyond the Pain, you'll find it. I'm on YouTube for the video form, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So yeah, it's called Beyond the Pain, Heart and Home Healing After Loss. I talk mostly about heart and healing and grief and things like that, and also becoming the best version of yourself. But I do touch on home stuff here and there. Like I mentioned, that is where my expertise is. And not only that, I won't ramble now because I know we're, wrapping up, but the state of your home has a huge effect on I believe the ability to succeed at whatever that looks like for you in your life. I believe I'm a truly firm believer that the state of your home has a big impact on your ability to focus and be intentional with
Mm-hmm.
your time and your
Mm-hmm.
healing and your grief and all of that. So that's why I incorporated that, because not only is it my expertise, but I do believe it has a huge impact. But so we cover all of those things.
I love it. And I'm right there with you. Home in terms of like structure, like how my
Yeah.
house is organized. Is it clean? Is it neat? Is it tidy to do it when I sit down to work? How does my desk look? How are the
Yeah.
things for my kid? You know, all of that. But also just the vibe within my home. Is it one that is calm and slow and centered, or is it one that is
Exactly.
quick to respond and fast paced and
Yeah.
frantic? Like all of that has a dramatic impact on success for us because that's
Yes.
where we come to recover, to recharge, to
Yes.
reset. And if that's all shaky, you know, gonna of
Exactly.
course impact everything else.
Yeah. Perfectly said.
Well, Emmy, it has been nothing but a pleasure to have you on. I hope to have you on again in the future because you have amazing insight to give, experience to share, and I know you will only continue on to do great things. And I can't wait to hear more about your adventures because it sounds like you guys have some fun stuff coming up.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me on today.
Of course, until next time, everyone out there, remember, keep thriving and not just surviving. We'll talk to you later. That's it for today's episode. If this hit home for you, don't just let it be another thing you hear. Take action. And the best way to start? Download my free masterclass, The High Achieving Woman's Escape Plan. 3 steps to reclaim your time, energy, and self. In this exclusive session, I'll show you exactly how to save over 5 hours a week, stop burnout in its tracks, and live in alignment with the real you. Click the link in the show notes and grab it now. And if you love this episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a friend who needs to hear this. Until next time, keep thriving.